Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. So this morning we started our conversation with Abhijit Radhakrishna, and he reminded us that literature is not merely about books or writing. It is a way of seeing, questioning, imagining, and making sense of the world. Now that brings us naturally to our second session, why literature matters beyond literature. Um, as we discussed in the morning, we often think of literature as belonging to the humanities, but in fact, stories shape every discipline. Historians reconstruct the past through narratives. Scientists communicate discoveries through stories. Managers build organizational cultures through stories. Strategists imagine futures through their stories. And even the ways we understand identity, disability, heritage, human relationships, these are all deeply narrative in nature. Now, this panel brings together scholars and professionals from diverse fields to reflect on a very simple but important question. What does literary thinking contribute to your discipline? It is my pleasure to welcome our distinguished panelist, and I look forward to what promises to be an engaging interdisciplinary conversation. Before we begin, let me briefly explain the format of today's panel. Each of our panelists will begin with a short opening reflection of about 5 to 7 minutes. And I request our panelists to kindly stick on to the time so that we have good time to do the conversation afterwards. And they will share how literature, storytelling, or narrative thinking intersects with their own discipline and professional practice. Now, once everyone has spoken, we'll move into a more formal, more informal and interactive conversation where we will explore connections across disciplines, followed by an open Q&A with the audience. With that, let's begin our panel. Our first speaker is Uthara. Uthara, it's my pleasure to introduce Uthara. She is a research scholar at the Central University of Tamil Nadu and a KCHR fellow. Her work on the archaeology of Pattanam and the ancient port of Muziris explores how material remains help us reconstruct stories of trade, culture, and human interaction. Having participated in archaeological excavations in both India and Egypt, she brings to this discussion a very fascinating perspective on how narratives emerge not only from text, but also from landscapes and objects of the past. Welcome, Uthara.
Thank you, Hasina. Okay, so shall I start?
Yes.
Okay. So a warm good afternoon to everyone. I feel so happy to be part of this LITFEST organized by the School of Social Science and Languages, VIT Chennai. It's my privilege to be part of this panel discussion with other eminent personalities from various disciplines. So I want to actually start with two stories. It's not the kind of stories that you read in your textbooks. It's the kind that stay with you. So the first one is probably you already know. It's a story of Kannagi and Kovalan, the story of Silapadikaram. We read it as a love story. Sometimes we consider it as a story with a tragic end, a woman's grief so fierce which turned into a so rage that burns an entire city of Madurai, and it's all of that. But there is a small moment in the epic that I can keep coming back to. That is Kovalan, the hero of the story. He's walking through the port of Puhar. Puhar is the Pumpuhar or the Kaveri Pumbatiram. And he sees ships. And among them, there are Yavana ships. So the Yavanas were the term which was used to denote Westerners or the Greeks. So ships, if you think the ships, why these ships are there? Ships that had no business being on a Tamil coast. So for a long time, scholars treated this detail as an atmosphere, like a poetic color. The kind of thing a good storyteller throws in to make a scene feel alive. So now come to the present. It was in, I think, it was in the middle of maybe after 1950s, the archaeological work in the early historic Tamilagam region started. So there are various sites across early historic Tamilagam, such as the site of Arikamedu, Urayur, Keeladi, Kaveri Pumpattinam. They have found enormous imported products, imported artifacts. They have found Roman amphorae. So, amphorae is basically a large storage jar which was used to transport liquid commodities from the Mediterranean province to other parts of the world. We find coins with the faces of Roman emperors. So there are hard physical evidence of a world that was deeply, very actively connected across the Indian Ocean. And suddenly, this covalence view of the Yavana ships weren't decoration anymore. So this is now turned into data. This poet had seen something real or heard of it, and he put it inside a love story of all the places. And that is how it survived. And that is how it reached us. So, this is what literature does, which archaeology sometimes cannot. The potsherds tells us the trade which happened. The Silapadikaram or the Manimekalai stories tells us what it felt like to live inside that world, to stand at a harbor and watch the foreign ships come in. So one gives us the fact and the other gives us the feeling. And I must say very honestly, you need both to understand the past, both the facts as well as the feeling, that story, that narrative, narration. We need both. Now, the second story, it's a much smaller story, and this is some ways more beautiful than the first one, personally to me. So, there is a place called Pattanam. It's an archaeological site which is located in the central part of Kerala in Ernakulam district. So, this place was called as Muthuparamba, which means the land of beads. The Mutta. Mutta is beads or pearls in Malayalam. And for generations, after the monsoon rains, children from that neighborhood would go out and pick up what the earth had brought after the rain. These are the small, bright, monochrome glass beads. They called them Mutta, and that is how this place got this name, Muthuparamba. They played with them, they strung them, they traded them among themselves, and nobody thought much of it. Then it was in 1996-97, the archaeologists started coming to Pattanam, hearing these stories of this Mutta. So it was, I mean, it was very fascinating to hear that, okay, a place is known as Muthuparamba and children are finding a lot of beads, a lot of Mutta from there. And what they found from the excavations, which started in 2007, was that beneath the soil layers was one of the richest assemblages of Indo-Pacific beads. So these beads are about 2000-year old. It came here through trade, and this was manufactured in South and Southeast Asian regions. So the children of Muthuparamba had been playing with this ancient trade goods, basically. They were touching the past with their bare hands without knowing it. So, and what strike me about this is what I genuinely find moving is that for all the centuries that no historian wrote about Pattanam, no chronicle named it or no dynasties claimed it, the land kept offering it up anyway to children in the form of this play, in the form of this mutta. So it was the stories which was going on for generations, for centuries. And I feel that memory does not always wait for us to find it. Sometimes it just surfaces on its own. So, what I would say sitting on this panel is simply this: history and archaeology are not just about recovering facts, they are about recovering the meaning. And stories, whether they are ancient epics or children's games or half written legends, these are often the vessels in which the meaning survives. So we dig, we read, we listen. And if we are patient enough, the past finds a way to speak. And there comes the role of the stories. That is all about, which I want to give us a brief intro about this.
Great. Thank you, Uthara, for showing us how archaeology allows us to reconstruct stories from landscape and material remains. So now from the narratives of the past, we now move to the narratives of the earth itself. We have Dr. Ratheesh Kumar RT with us. Thank you, Dr. Ratheesh, for readily agreeing. Dr. Ratheesh Kumar RT is an assistant professor in the Department of Marine Geology and Geophysics. He is trained at IIT Kharagpur and with a very rich experience, research experience at IISc Bangalore, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and the University of Kentucky as a NASA postdoctoral scholar. His work explores the evolution of the Earth's lithosphere through geophysics and petrology. Today, he joins us to reflect on how even the Earth has stories to tell and how scientific inquiry often depends on interpreting these long geological narratives. Welcome, Dr. Ratheesh. Ratheesh, you are muted.
Hello.
Yes, now you are audible.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hasina, for your gracious introduction. And it is both a privilege and a pleasure to participate in this really distinguished gathering that speaks about the relevance of literature beyond its conventional boundaries. As you pointed out, like this is beyond the book or publishing the materials, or somewhere it is mentioned some ideas. To make the logic out of it is what is more important, I think, and that's what we should do. So today I'm planning to just give some of the case examples from my studies, actually, how the landscapes makes the memories from the past, and the stories, the mythologies, and all those things. And I think I should start from a story. Once upon a time, that's how the story starts, right? So once upon a time, a prince stood on the eastern coast of India, southeastern coast of India, and he was planning to cross the impassable sea to save his wife from a demon king. You know what I am talking about. This is the story of Ramayana. So where Rama, wanted to save his wife from the demon king who abducted his wife to Sri Lanka, and for that they built a bridge with his Vanar Sena, the monkey army, and that bridge is popularly known as the Ram Setu. So presently, this Ram Setu is nothing but a mud bank or a sand bank with a lot of limestone or the coral atolls and all those things. But being a scientist or being a researcher or a geologist, my curiosity was to know what exactly is this structure and how this formed and how a sea existing in between Sri Lanka and India. And for that, so we have some kind of proxies, like we use some of the data sets, for example, gravitational field of the earth. So the gravity differs in some of the structures. I mean, according to the structures, and the densities varies. So by using the gravity data, we have modeled this entire structure, both in Sri Lanka, India, and the sea in between. And the result was really exciting. This Ram Setu area is actually a thick, it is not like a superficial expression of this ridge, but it's a thick continental scale, a structure. It's a bonding kind of thing, and we call it as umbilical cord. And the story is actually really interesting. This is a story between, you can say, a family story. So here the mother is India, father is Antarctica, and the Sri Lanka is the small kid. So they were happily living together. They were, like a single land, and they were continuing up to a particular time. Say, you can say up to 140 million years ago, this story happened. And after some time, what happened? Some problems happened between them, and the India started to go away from Antarctica. It was like a countercloak rifting movement from Antarctica. So at that time, what happened? The land in between got stretched and thinned. When it is got thinned, the seawater enters into that one, and that's how a sea formed in between. But the story is about the kid also, right? So Antarctica was actually holding Sri Lanka. Hey, you be with me, like that. But mother cannot, abandon her child. So because this Ram Setu area, because of this thick continental umbilical cord bonding, India could not separate from Sri Lanka. Rather, India took her child away from Sri Lanka, from the father, and they became a single plate. So the rifting happened between Sri Lanka and Antarctica. From then onwards, Antarctica and Sri Lanka were together as a single plate, and they were moving northward, and they moved, and finally India collided with Eurasia, and that's how the Himalaya formed. And still it continues as a single plate, as a mother and child. So this is the story. So bringing back, this is not just a geographical or geological feature that mentioned in Ramayana, epic Ramayana, but actually it also tells about something in the science we can connect it with, and that's how it correlates. Another one is just like, that we can easily connect with this a lost land to the south of Kanyakumari. Have you heard about that Kumari Kantam area? So there were many, stories regarding that one. According to that story, so there was several kingdoms that existed south of this Kanyakumari area, and that is submerged beneath the water right now. So this is the story, right? So we have done some scientific research, and that is still going on. But according to that research, so there is a structure in the ocean just south of the Kanyakumari region. So that is called the Cormorant Ridge structure. So we have studied this structure, what it is. We realized this structure is actually something similar to a continental plate. We have continental as well as oceanic plate, right? Though it is in the ocean, it is having some characteristics of continents. In a way, it proves like their idea or their interpretation, or their imagination was some way correct. It is having some continental influence, but the problem is like the age data. So this particular thing happened when India and Madagascar, they were rifting away each other. So just like we told, India, Sri Lanka were rifted about, or Antarctica were rifted about 140 million years ago. This rifting happened about 88 million years ago. Remember, 1 million years is 10 raised to 6 years, right? So this is 88 times 10 raised to 6 years ago, this particular event was occurred. But according to these stories, this was happened geologically or historically in a recent time, right? Remember, the human evolution, the modern human evolution happened about 3 lakhs years ago, just 3 lakhs years. Okay, so this story happened. The tectonically, it happened about 88 million years ago. So the imagination interpretation may match, but actual story or actual processes are different. And I mean, there are many examples. For example, we know that volcanoes, the term volcanoes, it emerged from the term the Vulcan. Vulcan was a Roman god of fire, blacksmith and all. So from there it actually emerged. So whenever the Roman people witnessed this kind of volcanic eruptions, they imagined like the god is actually playing the role, and he's exhaling the smoke and the molten metals and all out of the surface. And coming back to India, we have Himalaya. Himalaya is personified from the Himavan. Himavan was the father of Parvati, the goddess Parvati, right? So there are many examples. This is curious how they have imagined these geographical structures that have a long endurance in the geological period. So we can witness those structures and then we can make the logic out of it. So that's what I think probably I'm doing. Yeah, there are many more I hope I can discuss with you, and I'm excited to join here, and I'm stopping right now here and will join later. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ratheesh. And it was so fascinating. A very fascinating reminder that even scientific inquiry is in many ways an exercise in reading and interpreting stories written over millions of years. We now move on from understanding the earth to understanding organizations and people. And we have Dr. Manu Melwin Joy with us. He is an assistant professor at the School of Management Studies, Cochin University of Science and Technology. He's a prolific researcher with nearly 90 international publications, and he's the author of 7 books. His book focuses on gamification, employee engagement, learning, and organizational behavior. He has over 2 decades of experience working with industries, public institutions, and universities across the world. He brings a unique perspective on how storytelling, play, and narrative shape learning, leadership, and workplace culture. Welcome, Dr. Manu.
Yeah, thank you, Hasina, for that converse introduction. Hope I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So, and first of all, I am really privileged to be a part of this August audience, talking about something which is very, very relevant in the current times. So to begin with, imagine a world without stories. No bedtime stories by grandparents, no epics to talk about, no historical books. So human beings will be flooded with information, but they will lack the very meaning. That is exactly what stories are all about. It gives meanings for the entire humankind. So, we are called humans Homo sapiens, but I would say we are Homo narrators. That means we are the people who tell stories. And if you take it into the context of organizations and business, there is no organization, no business without stories. And I will share with you two stories to drive in this point. First, it's about a business empire. And just a small tick mark will give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Anybody? You got the organization that I'm talking about? The logo, the name of the logo of the organization is Swoosh, which is depicted by a small tick mark. Any one of you? Yes, Nike. Yes. Mr. Chandran said, Sagar said it. Exactly. And so it is so iconic. And think about the tagline of Nike. What is the tagline of Nike? There are lots of very powerful ads created from this particular very, we call it, just do it. Yes, Chandan Sagar, just do it. And if you think about this particular tagline, it is not just a tagline. Nike is putting across a very compelling narrative that drives into the minds of their customers. It is not just, they are not just selling shoes. They are just selling the hope. They are selling resilience. They are selling perseverance. So they are telling the stories of failed athletes, how they fight back, how they rebuild their career, and how they motivate millions of people across the globe. It's not just about celebrated athletes. It's about normal people who run their first mile. So Nike is not just about selling shoes. It's about the story that drives in hope to the people across the world. So if you want to hold your customers, if you want to engage them, entertain them, educate them, excite them, you have to tell stories, because only through stories you can connect with them. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to connection, the human connection. That's about how you connect, engage your customers. And in an organization, your second most important people are your internal customers. That's your employees. And the stories that you tell to your employees are very important, because they are the people who drive the entire machine. And let me tell another very powerful story of an organization built by an iconic leader who gave the organization a tagline, think different. Which organization has the tagline, think different? In the chat box? Apple, yes, correct. Steve Jobs, he was kicked out of the very company he founded. And when he came back in 1997, the company was at the brink of bankruptcy. And he somehow wanted to bring back the good times of Apple. And he realized that he has to drive in a very compelling narrative to the employees. When he checked the entire ecosystem of the organization, he found that the fundamental problem that they were facing was lack of focus. They had too many products, many variants for the same product. So he did an in-depth study and he found that they had 350 different products. And he decided, we have to go lean. You have to trim. So he asked his employees, and this was the narrative that he drove in. What you decide not to do is equally important as what you decide to do. I repeat, it's very, very important. What you decide not to do is equally important as what we decide to do. Focusing is about saying no. And he drove in the point that saying no to everything that is irrelevant for your business and your customers is the most important yes that you have to say. And the employees got connected with what he was saying. And together, they cut down their product line by 70%. And as a result of that, within 2 years, Apple became a profitable company. So whether it is your customers or your employees, it's all about how you connect with them. And the best and the only way in which you can connect with them emotionally are through stories. Think about what Mahatma Gandhi did. He took the concept of salt in 1930 and connected with millions of people by keeping aside all the complex political issues and taking a narrative that all of them could relate to. And that is how he connected with the entire nation. So storytelling is about leadership. Storytelling is about business. Storytelling is about marketing. So if you want to be a great leader, if you want to build a great business, and if you want to inspire people around you, you should be a master storyteller. Over to you, Hasina. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. Yeah. Your reflections really showed us how stories are not only told, but also designed to inspire, engage, and motivate. Now, from organizations, now we take another turn to a field where narratives shape decisions at a global scale, aviation strategy. We have Dr. Safia Bahas with us, and it is my pleasure to welcome her. She is an aviation strategy specialist whose experience spans airline operations, airport performance, academic research, and strategic consulting. With a PhD in air transport management and professional experience ranging from Air India Express to international strategy consulting, her work combines operational data, passenger experience, and market dynamics to support strategic decision making. Her presence in this panel reminds us that stories are not confined to literature, but they also shape organizations, leadership, and the futures we imagine. Welcome, Dr. Safia.
Thanks a lot for that wonderful introduction, Dr. Hasina. First of all, apologies to everyone. My camera was initially switched on, but due to some network issues, it's not going through. So I'll have. I hope I'm audible even now because of the network issues. I just wanted to. Yeah, thanks, Hasina. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's actually my pleasure to be part of this panel and to just discuss about how literature, like the value of literature beyond beyond literature itself. As a child, I was an avid reader. As an adult, I started to see those connections of like how reading or literature sort of affects our overall life. And when it comes to my field, which as Dr. Hasina mentioned, I work in aviation and a bit of strategy. What I want to say is that it's very simple because literature matters because it helps us understand complexity. So it's not, it helps us understand what numbers mean, what the data means, and also helps us understand a lot about people, institutions, and societies. Um, in my own work, whether it's the research that I did or the current strategy work that I do, I've felt like the most difficult decisions are rarely taken based on technical data. There's always that social element. There's also the element of judgment, interpreting that data, communicating what needs to be done, and essentially an awareness of how different people experience the same issue very differently. This is relevant when it comes to passenger experience, and I think that's why literature remains relevant beyond the classroom. Um, so first of all, I already mentioned about interpretation, and I felt like literature. I think literature makes us interpret the data better. So, for example, during uh, during my work at Air India Express, we would easily understand. Okay, the number of, sorry, there's a train. Currently, I'm sitting outdoors and a train passed by. Sorry for that interruption.
We would have
But
loved to
yes,
see
like I
the
was
train
saying,
standing in the UK.
it's wonderful. I'm in this little town called Starcross presently, sat next to a train station, trying to have this discussion. Anyways, yeah, so we were talking about interpretation, and what I have felt is that it adds the context, the literature element, whether it was in Air India Express or in Zero Watt Energy, whenever we faced an issue and we looked into the numbers, what actually added value to finding a solution was understanding the context of where that issue has occurred. And I think that is something that numbers cannot explain on its own. We need words, we need literature, and I think that's one of the main contribution of literature, in my opinion. Uh, the second factor is, I think it sort of helps us understand or build empathy. So to give a bit of a background about this, I did my PhD research in airport efficiency and passenger experience because these were two topics that were researched and understood separately: the passenger experience and airport efficiency, like what makes an airport efficient. So what my research did was, like, I was looking at it uh, at together to understand how it is related to each other. And what my findings showed was that in order for an airport to be efficient, there are certain complexities behind that. And we've got the technical complexities, which is related to the technical aspects of running an airport. But at the same time, what was equally important when I interviewed airport managers, when I looked at the data, was that there are social complexities. And social complexities are related to a lot of things, such as how organizational management is done, when there is a sudden change in or update to what's happening at the airport, how it's being communicated. So all of this actually comes under social complexity, and I think literature sort of explains um, how that's necessary for an airport to be efficient. So it's not just having the best machines or the best processes out there. It's also about uh, pairing it with uh, clear information exchange, communication, and I think literature sort of helps us with that. And the third point, I think, which has already been covered here, is literature shapes the narrative. So even for organizations, that's actually true, especially when it comes to airports. Um, Obviously, as demand increases, there's this need for building more airports, but that also comes with a cost, right? There's We need to think about noise, we need to think about the sustainability related factors that might go into building more airports. So, and that's where I can see how literature is being used to build a narrative. So, for example, here in the UK, currently, Heathrow is trying to build their third runway. Uh, Another London airport, which is called Gatwick Airport, they are trying to make their emergency runway a second operational runway. And to make these big decisions, we need policies and metrics, yes, but we also need to build stories. So, in terms of the impact on noise or sustainability, uh, a lot of the decisions, a lot of the strategies that they actually use is by trying to relate to the people, trying to give them the information in their language, because we can always say, oh, if we build this runway, we'll have these many more jobs, these many more flights. We could always say that, but sometimes the residents around the area, they're more interested in knowing how the noise is managed. And so I feel like literature helps airports in this case build that narrative, which which ensures that all the stakeholders are actually involved in the decision. So based on the stakeholder, we might need a different narrative, and to get that narrative right, I think literature becomes very, very important. Like I said, it's different stakeholders, so same situation will have different impacts, and this is where good communication also comes into use. So I think I've taken enough time, but my general view is that literature matters, and it develops that kind of thinking that good professionals and good leaders need. It helps you understand, like, with good judgment, the ability to communicate, like I said before, to interpret or understand the context of the numbers. It helps us become better at understanding the world in general. That I think that has been iterated already. It helps us become better at explaining it to others. So it's part of the real world practice, and it's actually one of the disciplines that helps, that keeps our thinking more human like. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Safia. Um, your perspective demonstrated that behind every strategy, every policy, lies a story about the future an organization hopes to create. Now, our final speaker brings us back to literature itself, while reminding us that stories are also shape identity, representation, and inclusion. Our next panelist is Dr. Sharda Devi. She's an assistant professor of English at University College, Trivandrum, Kerala. She's a scholar of disability studies, media studies, and cultural studies. She is also a very passionate advocate for disability rights, being a wheelchair user herself, and her work bridges academic research and public engagement. Through her scholarship and activism, she has consistently highlighted the role of literature and representation in shaping identities, challenging stereotypes, and creating more inclusive societies. We are delighted to have her with us today. Welcome, Dr. Sharda.
Thank you, Dr. Hasina. I hope I'm audible.
You are.
Okay. So, first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Hasina and Dr. Anuja Raj for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful panel discussion on the significance and scope of literature beyond literature. And I think it's indeed a privilege for me to be a part of this conversation alongside scholars and experts from different disciplines like science, management, aviation, history, technology. So it 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 makes us realize the fact that literature or storytelling in general cannot exist in isolation. Their relevance moves beyond the limits of literature itself, because of the kind of uh, meaning that it holds. So I'm very much delighted to be a part of this discussion. And as Hasina has pointed out, um, I'm a person with disability, and my primary area of research is disability studies, even though I also focus on other areas of research related to cultural studies. When I was thinking about this topic, I remember uh, the time when I first read the book titled The Diary of a Young Girl, the work, The Diary of Anne Frank. So I was in school at that time. Even though I was not much aware of the seriousness of the situation that was described in that particular work, I know I was moved by her situation. I was moved by her courage as a young girl. And it really touched me to know how she, as a young girl, had to go through several difficult situations in her life when her family went into hiding, and the kind of torture that she had to face during that young period. So at that time, even though I was not aware of the term called privilege, I still used to wonder about my privilege as a young girl, because I had the freedom to go to school, to step outside without any kind of fear, or to speak openly, or to simply lead a so called ordinary life. So these were the things that many people, including Anne Frank, were denied. So this was something that I realized uh, yesterday when I started thinking about this panel discussion. At that time, I was not aware of this thing called privilege, but now I realize that I had started thinking about my own privileges even as a young child, even though I was not aware of the term privilege as such. And I think it was during my research, my PhD research, that I actually started getting more and more aware about this term called privilege. Even though I am less privileged when I compare myself to non disabled people in society, I realize that I certainly have uh, some privileges within the disabled community. Because these are the privileges that enabled me to reach this position, to become an assistant professor of English in a government college in Trivandrum. It is not something uh, that any person with disability can achieve, because there will be lots of obstacles in society for any person with disability. So my privileges obviously have helped me to navigate the obstacles in society. So my PhD thesis was titled "The Politics of Privilege in Select Discourses on Disability." So it was during that time that I became more aware of this um, concept called privilege. So that's when I started to look at literary works from a different perspective. Initially, when I used to read literary works, yeah, I simply read the works as a child. I enjoyed the works, I enjoyed the stories, but I was not much aware of all these social realities that are embedded within these narratives. So, as a PhD research scholar, I started becoming more aware of such realities, and I started realizing my own privileges, especially when I came into contact with other persons with disabilities from less privileged backgrounds. And also, recently I'm reading Aditya Roy's autobiographical work, Mother Mary Comes to Me. So there also, uh, we get to know about her childhood, the kind of traumatic experiences she had to face, she had to experience as a young child. So all these narratives make me reflect on the kind of privileges that we have, and the kind of disadvantages that certain people will have to face in their lives. There are several other books that have changed the way in which I look at the entire world and also at myself. So I think this is one of the greatest gifts that literature has offered us, because literature will enable us to step into another person's life, and that will also help us to get a more deeper understanding of our own life. So usually people may wonder when I say that yes, I'm an assistant professor of English and I mainly teach English language and literature. So they may wonder what's the relevance of literature. Yeah, it's true that many people think that literature is basically about appreciating beautiful language or analyzing some fictional words. It's true, but I think literature also trains us to ask certain difficult questions, because I believe that every literary text, whether it is a non-fiction, whether it is a fiction, a poetry, drama, every literary text encourages us to ask certain questions, like who is the speaker, or whose voice is missing in that particular text, and why is this story or why is this narrative told in this way. So these are some of the questions that will pop up in our mind when we read a literary text, if we are aware of all these things. So I think I regard these as not merely literary questions. They actually help us to understand many things about politics, media, law, history, and even everyday human interactions. So, as a teacher and also as a researcher whose primary area is disability studies, I have come to understand that disability, the understanding of disability, is often shaped not just by our personal experiences alone. Stories, narratives have a great role to play there. And this is true for other intersectional categories as well. For example, gender, caste, race, sexuality, etc. So the narratives we consume, the narratives we read, actually influence the assumptions that we make in our minds. So I remember there is one book called An Unexpected Gift. It's a novel written by Ajay K. Pandey. And this book was gifted to me by one of my Christmas friends a few years back. So the main protagonist is a transgender person. So even though it was a fiction, imaginary story, it really moved me a lot. It changed my perspectives about transgender community to a certain extent. So I developed more empathy towards that community, even though it is a fictional story. So I started thinking from different points of view when it comes to that community, not just taking any single perspective. So this is one book. There are several other books that have deeply influenced my perspectives about life, not just about disability, but about all other intersections. So that is one important thing that I would like to convey. It helps us to recognize our privilege. It helps the readers to recognize the privilege, and it allows us to inhabit our own lives in different manners. So we will get opportunities to think about how our lives will be from another person's perspective. And also, I think literature will remind us that experiences are not universal, because society itself is intersectional in structure. So lived experiences are varied and diverse. So no two individuals go through similar experiences. So because of that, as a teacher, when I teach my students any literary work, I often encourage them to question their own assumptions. Because now we have this 4-year undergraduate program. So in a particular semester, there is one particular module itself that makes the students question their assumptions and question their privilege. So I give them opportunities to reflect on their own assumptions, to reflect on their own misconceptions. So yeah, so I also try to make them understand that studying literature has its own value, because it 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 helps in molding good citizens with moral and ethical uh, values, because literature creates a space where conversations about identity, inequality, inclusion, and justice can begin. So, as my fellow panelists have already pointed out, storytelling and narratives have their own importance in all these fields. So, literature is universal, storytelling is universal, and we cannot ignore the significance of studying literature as a discipline. So, these are my initial thoughts on this topic. Thank you.
Wonderful, beautiful, Sharda. Thank you so much. Now we have some 30 minutes left. So I thank once again all our panelists for these wonderful opening reflections. Now, the remaining 30 minutes, I think we can divide the first half of the 30 minutes for a panel conversation, then the remaining 15 minutes for our participants for a Q&A. Now I'll begin by inviting our panelists to respond to a question, and then I would encourage all our panelists to jump in, build on each other's ideas, and offer different perspectives, or even respectfully disagree. So the idea is to have a conversation rather than a series of individual responses. So my question is, can someone become an excellent scientist, a very good manager, an expert historian, or a strategist without ever really engaging deeply with literature? Somebody who has no exposure to literature, can they become experts in your field? And why? If yes, why? And if not, why not? I request the panelists to kindly volunteer yourselves to answer.
Okay, am I audible? Okay, so I come from the discipline of history and archaeology. So we are very much close with the stories because we cannot leave literature apart and solely depend on the evidences. That is not possible for us. In the field of history and particularly in archaeology, we always look into the literature. We find evidences from the literature and we try to corroborate it with the material culture or the material remains. So, as I had quoted in my initial session, I mean, that 5 minutes talk, like this literature is very important for us. The stories are very important for us. But so, yeah, so that is about the history and archaeology. We always want stories to be part of us.
Yeah, can I say something with that? Yeah, I wanted to say that since you are a historian, you told that you are very much in close contact with stories. So that is something that I had learned from Shashi Tharoor also. So he was also saying that he is a historian and he has a lot of language, isn't it? So something that even the literature people like us even look forward to. We also learn a lot from what he is saying, what he is speaking. Even he was telling that he will read a lot of books, perhaps 365 books a year. And nobody, I don't know how a person can read like that. And so, yeah, I genuinely do admit that historians and historic people, I mean, people who are learning history, they are having much more contact with literature than literature people.
Yes, yes, I completely agree with you. But again, I had to put a caution warning there because it's a fine line. It's a very complex border between the stories and the evidence. So it's based on a historian or an archaeologist rationale or logic to apply this stories, like what is to be taken from a story and to be applied into the narration. So that line is very fine and complex.
And I think it's also important to be careful not to bring in bias there, especially for historians.
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
Our other panelist,
I
Dr.
can
Ratheesh.
jump in with.
Please.
So, yeah.
Somebody was asking something.
Ratheesh, Safia was saying something and she's on mute now.
Okay.
No, I'll let Dr. Ratheesh go ahead.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you. So in science, actually, the literature works in a different way. So here we mostly will take, those are logical as well as there are evidence. Science means everything is that evidence-based one. Otherwise, that's a hypothesis. So there is a clear notion between the hypothesis and the theory. Right. So we do it in a two bimodal way. It's like, we look for a particular evidence and then we will use the available literatures to justify that particular idea in that way. Otherwise, we will just go through the literatures. So whatever the state of art of that particular study, and then we will realize, okay, something is missing or something is erroneous or some dispute is there. Then we will use some advanced things to understand that one and to overcome or to realize or to propose a new or add on to that particular idea. So that's how in science the literature works. But I also recently jumped into the archaeology, geoarchaeology field, and so there it's very interesting actually. So there are different literatures there. Some ancient literatures. Uthara can comment on that very well. So ancient Roman literatures and all those things. So they are primary evidences, primary literatures. Many hypothetical or many imaginary things are there, but there are some important aspects and important things we can relate and correlate, and that will lead us to go to the field and find out for the evidence. In that way, anything that is, whether it's a written document or or verbal document or verbal, stories, anything. So we should take care of that one, and we should analyze, and we should use our logic to find a notion and to find the evidence or justifications for that particular idea. That's what I mean. So I mentioned about Ramayana. My idea was not to use the science to prove or disprove Ramayana. So I can come back to that one, and I can say if there was a community like that, or Rama really wanted to make a bridge. So this Ram Setu area was the ideal one to make a bridge. Why? Because this is the shallowest bathymetry area. So anyone, if they want to cross the sea, this is the ideal place to make a bridge and cross the thing. So I'm not disregarding or disproving those ideas, but the idea is to what is that structure geologically, what exactly is that structure. Literatures can give the memory of the people, but this geographical features can give the memory of the earth. So that's the difference here. Yeah.
Right. Sophia, are you guys saying something?
Yeah, I think Dr. Ratheesh sort of actually said the point I wanted to. It's obviously from the scientific or the strategy bit. To answer your question directly, like theoretically, it might be possible to make a decision based just on numbers, but that's where theory and hypothesis comes into play. Right? We have to test something, so it may not necessarily work. And I think that the bimodel that Dr. Ratheesh mentioned was exactly how we because but we also need that subjective element, and I think you cannot separate that out.
So I just want to add one point to what the discussion is going on. So hope you might have heard about the famous book written by Daniel Kahneman, that is Thinking Fast and Slow. So people think that they are rational, but if you delve deep into their psyche, you can see that most of the decisions that we take are based on our hunch. So it talks about a lot of shortcuts and heuristics that we use when we take decisions. Okay, so even though when you say that you are taking decisions based on numbers, most of the time we use these shortcuts, and these shortcuts are basically the stories that we tell to ourselves. That is all about saving our time of processing. So all the shortcuts that we use, that is about saving our brain from exhaustion. So this is the biological way of saving our energy, conserving our energy. So going instead of going for endless dissection of knowledge and other things, we create a story and say, yeah, that's it. So that also happens, but that is not the right way. We say, but that is the way in which we operate. So the book is all about being very cautious about these irrational ways in which we narrow down decisions. That's it.
We have 5 more minutes. Panelists, please break the silence. Uthara said you had some question with you.
No, that was something very similar to what we had discussed just now.
I mean, I'm sure Sharda does not have to, because we deal with literature and yeah.
Yeah, when you speak about the written documents or the books. Right now I have a interesting book here. It's written in Malayalam. Actually, it's Cleopatra, Malayali girl. So this books narrate like Cleopatra was a Malayali girl, and the author is Velaitham Panikar. Okay, so I just just saw this title and bought this book, and it's very interesting. The things he has mentioned, everything like Cleopatra. She originally hailed from our Kerala, and then she migrated to the Egypt and became like a princess over there, like that. So even he mentioned about that Kumari Kandam, all those stories with this one. Nicely portrayed all those things, but there are many controversial things or mismatches when considering the evidences, so this thing. So this is an example. You can read very well this one, and you can enjoy the reading and all those things like a story. But this is, immediately someone will take this one and say, hey, Cleopatra, that book mentioned that Cleopatra was a Malayali girl, like that, So yes, you have to be very cautious when connecting that one with the actual sense and the justice of that idea,
I think fiction also brings in a little bit of fun to your discipline.
Sure. I agree. That's what I mean. Yeah.
I think, Sharda, you can also think about some questions for people from other disciplines.
I was thinking about one thing that Dr. Safia has mentioned regarding empathy. So I don't have any actual question, but it's just an observation. Like in FIUGP, we had a course to teach students, and it was on the different levels of intelligence. So there are interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, then emotional intelligence, etc. So in one of the articles, there was a reference to the importance of empathy when it comes to leadership. So I was thinking about that when I was listening to all these panelists sharing their experiences. Like, even though they are dealing with data and facts, they're dealing with numbers, factual things, but still, I think empathy is very essential, because after all, we are all dealing with human lives and society in one way or the other. The methods will be different, but still we are dealing with people in one way or the other, even if it's business. So I think that's why literature still holds a great relevance there. So that's what I tell my students also. If they ask me what is the point in studying literature, I make them understand that even if you go to work in several other disciplines, the fact that you have studied literature will really help you when you work in some professional spaces. So that's what I was thinking about right now.
We have a hand raised. Chandan Sagar, could you please unmute and...
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Actually, I have a few questions, and I would like to begin with Dr. Sharda ma'am. Ma'am, I have always felt like the people of the disabled community, they have always had this pressure of proving themselves to lead normal lives. What I mean by this is like the people that we celebrate from this community are often who have participated and won in Paralympics, or even when we see the films, a character like Pushpa, who was slightly on the lines of that, he was a celebrated character. So I wanted to ask, how can literature be used to treat people of the disabled community to lead normal lives and not just celebrity figures so that they can be considered equals?
Yeah, thank you, Chandan. That's a very important question. In fact, literature, I mean, when it comes to Indian literature in English, we don't find many literary works featuring persons with disabilities, especially as protagonists. So that is a main problem here. We don't have adequate representation of disability experience in our literature. So people are not much informed about what it means to be disabled, or what are the different experiences related to disability. So I think many people regard disability as a homogeneous experience. It's a universal experience, but it's not like that. Even I'm a wheelchair user, but my experiences are totally different from the experiences of another wheelchair user, because, like I said earlier, there are several intersectional factors coming and shaping our lived experiences. So we can't compare our experiences and arrive at such judgment. So the problem here is that there are some narratives based on disability and disability rights in India, but the problem here is they mostly try to present narrative based on inspiration porn, what we call as inspiration porn. That is what you mentioned, like disabled people who achieve some kind of success in different fields, they will be projected as inspirational figures, motivational characters. Even some people try to project me in that manner, but I try to resist it as much as possible, because I don't want to project myself as an extraordinary figure. I'm just an ordinary human being with my own capabilities and my own limitations. So, but the problem here is many disabled people also don't realize this, because they are not they are not getting opportunities to know about their identity. Because I was exposed to all these sources of knowledge, so I got that opportunity to get knowledge. So I got aware of my own identity, but not all disabled people get that chance. So so they are trapped in this dominant ideology of ableism in society. So if they have to survive in this society, they will have to project themselves as inspirational figures. So that's why many of these disabled people uh, who we find in media, they describe themselves as differently abled, Divyangjan, specially abled, and so on. They try to project themselves in that manner, because only then they will get social validation. So the same problem can be found in literature also. So if a literary work is written by a non-disabled author and it features a disabled protagonist, most often we can find there an inspirational narrative, or the character will be portrayed in a sympathetic manner. So these are the two extreme ways in which we find disabled people represented in literature. So actually, there are different ways in which disabled people are leading their lives, but literature is not able to capture that realistic lives of persons with disabilities. They are still the literary works still treat disabled people as others who are leading some kind of different lives. So the problem is with the writers themselves. I mean, they also have internalized all these uh, ideologies related to ableism. So they also think about disability in that particular manner. So the writers, they use all these works as a medium to convey their perspectives and thoughts. So that's why we find this problem related to the representation of disability. And interestingly, when I started my PhD research, one of the areas I focused was Indian English fiction. So I was trying to find some novels in Indian English that feature disabled protagonists. It was very tough because there are not many Indian English novels with disabled protagonists, characters that have a significance in the story. So I used to comment them in a humorous manner that it looks like I will have to write a novel myself with a disabled protagonist so that I can complete my research, because that was a kind of uh, dearth of literary works with disabled protagonists. So I think the writers, society itself has to change a lot. Only then there will be a significant progress in this scenario. Uh, but of course, there are some works in Malayalam. There is a novel called Violet Pookalude Maranam, written by Sri Parvati. She is one of the contemporary Malayalam writers. So it has a female protagonist who is a wheelchair user. So it's a very interesting novel, and it does not deal with the usual stereotypes of disability that we find in literature. There, the specialty is that Sri Parvati's husband is a wheelchair user. So she is pretty much aware about what it means to be disabled. She is pretty well informed about disability and disability rights. So her knowledge about disability obviously gets reflected in her novel. So that's what makes that particular work special. But there are only very few novels in Indian literature like this particular one. Yeah, I hope I'm clear.
Yes, ma'am. I could very much clear my doubt about it. Thank you so much. And ma'am, actually, I had another question to Uttara, ma'am. Can I just proceed, or do I wait for another turn?
No,
Sure,
please,
you can
please,
ask me.
please.
Hello, ma'am. Actually, my question is a twofold question. I wanted to ask, like somebody from your field, that is the field of history and archaeology, how do they treat literature like the epics of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata? And the second question would come, like in cases of the Prithviraj Raso by Chand Bardai, where it obviously exaggerates a few parts of the story in order to praise the king. How is that treated as how is that treated in archaeology? Like, do they take in account such stuff, or are they discarded?
Okay. So the first question, how do we consider the epics Ramayana and Mahabharata in history? So basically in historical studies, Ramayana and Mahabharata are considered to be quasi-history. It's half history. It's not full history. So we do teach students about the epics, the time when these epics were compiled and how it was transmitted to the next generations. We deal with these kind of things. We do not delve too much into the story as such, because it is a story. We cannot teach the students, or we cannot tell the other people that there was a demon who had 10 heads. So that doesn't make any logic, right? So we do not delve too much into the story as such, but we consider the socio-economic background in which especially the society in which the story was written, and what was the social background the story goes on. And this is what we looked into. And the second one was about the Prithviraj
Prithviraj
Chauhan's
Raso.
work, right? Yes, yes, yes. So when it comes to archaeology, so we consider we look into this chronicles too. But again, there also we always keep a line. There is a border. There is a fine line between what can be taken into account and what cannot be taken into account. So see, most of the stories or most of the chronicles or the foreign travelers' accounts, we see that there are a lot of exaggerations in these works. So I mean, that is something which we have to be very careful while dealing with. That caution is to be applied there. So that is actually a very difficult process in history and archaeology, but with within our own limitations, we tend to do it. We are supposed to do it. We cannot take the whole account as such into the discipline. That is a very difficult thing. And one more thing which I wanted to add, like I was just thinking about the story. There is a story of the pharaohs of Egypt. There is the death curse which was given. I mean, which was very popular. So that is when the Tutankhamun, the King Tutankhamun's tomb was opened in 1922 by Howard Carter. There was an engraving on the entrance of the tomb which said the whoever who is going to open the tomb will have to carry the curse. So this still prevails in Egypt today. So when I was working in Egypt in a site, we had to. So I was not dealing with the pharaonic period. I was dealing with a much later period, that is a Greco-Roman period. But whenever there was a tomb or a grave or a skeleton to be excavated, the indigenous population, they were the laborers who had helped us in the excavations. They had this anxiety. They had this fear of excavating the skeletons. So what I felt was this anxiety is part of a historical artifact. This fear, the story that carries, that is still considered to be a part of a historical artifact. Yes.
Thank you.
That's nice. Annapurna has her hand raised. Annapurna,
Hello, ma'am and sir. Good afternoon. I hope I'm audible.
you are.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can't hear you. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you, Annapurna.
Okay, ma'am. So my question is,
I think now you are not audible.
Maybe she can type the question in the
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah, Annapurna, if you have network issues, you can type in your query in the chat box. I can read it out for you.
Anji?
Annapurna, actually there is some network issue from your end. So you can type your query in the chat box. I can read it out for you.
Ma'am, I can just try. Wait a minute, just fixing my
Yes,
network.
Did she leave the meeting? Oh, no, she's. Okay, Uthara, you were saying about this belief sets of people in Egypt. So I'm just curious, how do you as researchers, archaeologists deal with this thing?
It was not an easy task. It was a very difficult thing. The first barrier was the language barrier. So I had worked in a site which is known as Berenike. It is close to South Sudan. So we had actually an indigenous population to work as the laborers in the trench. So these people, I mean, the first barrier was communicating with them. I had to learn this Egyptian Arabic a little bit to at least make a conversation with them. And slowly, gradually, they started telling us about their beliefs and with like broken English. So we'll say that it's broken Egyptian Arabic. Egyptian Arabic is very much different from the normal Arabic. So the dialect is very different. So they started telling us about stories. They believe in this concept of jinn, and yeah, you know, the devil. So they used to tie a thread like, I mean, people tie around the hands. They have a thread, and I think they have a pendant also uh, to. I mean, that was part of their belief system. So I had I mean, I had a chance to hear a lot of stories from these people. But again, that was a very fascinating experience.
See, there are stories everywhere.
Yes, there are stories everywhere.
And this is the crisis that I think all ethnographers deal with, dealing with the beliefs of people and not really hurting them and still doing our work.
Right. Absolutely.
We have not yet received a question from Annapurna. Yeah, Annapurna, please. We're just waiting for your question.
Okay, actually, ma'am, there was some issue with my Wi-Fi. I'm sorry for
Completely.
that. Yeah, so ma'am, my actually question was related to how females have been depicted in the literature. For example, in today, like when I watch some movie or maybe some novel from the literature, like the way women have been represented, because that was their actual condition at that time. I get that thing completely. But my question is regarding, for example, Romeo and Juliet, The Great Gatsby, The Handmaid's Tale, the way women have been mistreated, controlled, and just treated as second class citizens. So, when we are constantly focusing on these struggles, is there a risk that maybe we are keeping that negative mindset alive instead of moving on it to that? My actual question is like, where is the balance? Like, how are we supposed to read those works, and at the same time we should think about the ways so that we can fix it, not just continue the trauma? Because nowadays, even when we read about it, we feel bad, like we genuinely feel bad, but we cannot see any solution to do that. So, how to just fix those things instead of just continuing whatever in that it is?
To whom is this question, Annapurna? I think it's to Sharda.
Yeah, Annapurna. Yeah, that's an interesting query. Yeah, it's an important question because we have to read and study so many literary works belonging to different ages, starting from uh, Shakespeare or even before that. So there are canonical works that we have to read. So it's true that women, not only women, but people belonging to different marginalized sections in society get represented in pretty negative manner in most of the works that we consider as belonging to the canon right now. So I think what we can do is, yes, uh, we can read and appreciate the literary works as such. At the same time, we can ask ourselves questions. As I was telling during my first speech, literature gives us opportunities to ask and reflect on different questions. So we can challenge the narratives that we read. We can challenge the narratives. We can question them. So if we find a misogynic representation in a particular work, we can read it, and also we can try to critique it for the way in which it represents women, and we can point out the issues in representing women in that particular work, and at the same time we can recognize the fact that this representation happens to be in such a manner because it was written in that particular period. So that's how personally I try to read such literary works. But even in films, when I was doing my PhD research, films were also taken as primary sources of study. So there were lots of films from the past that deal with disability in negative manner, in sympathetic manner. I appreciate the films as such, but at the same time, I critique the way in which disability is portrayed in those films, because these representations reflect the age in which, the period in which those films were produced. So that's how we can look at the literary works. We can appreciate the literary aspects of that work, but at the same time, we should not ignore all these issues related to representation. The problematic representations should definitely be ignored, should not be ignored, but we can also enjoy the literary aspects. We can enjoy the beauty of the literary genre as well. I hope I'm clear, Annapurna.
Yeah, ma'am, I just have a question. Can I add to that?
Quickly, please.
Okay. So I'll make it quick. So, ma'am, in general, we say that reading makes us a better person. Like we are supposed to read a lot of things and then we'll have an insight. Maybe we'll do introspect and do a lot of things. But we read about everything, struggles of marginalized people or the people who are facing real life hardship in the real life. And we feel very empathetic while reading to that. Ki, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. But the moment we are done with the book or maybe the novel, maybe the movie, then the shift of mind changes. So how can we turn that empathy from books into a real world action? Because we read about a lot of things, but at the end of the day, what we are doing literally nothing. We feel bad at that moment, but after that we are like, okay, the word goes on, this is how the life is. So
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that's I think that's a problem that many people will be facing. I think it needs a conscious effort from the side of the individual. So if you want to continue feeling that kind of empathy towards such people who are going through some kind of suffering, if you want to do something for such causes, you will have to consciously build in yourself a habit. Yeah, you have to consciously build that empathy within your mind, even after you finish reading a book, because it's not good to stop there, because you have to carry that kind of feeling that you have gained through that reading process forward, even after you finish the reading process. So it needs a conscious effort, and I think it's not easy, but if you try, you will be able to do that. And in fact, personally, I had made conscious efforts to build the kind of empathy that I have right now. So in my day-to-day interactions with my students or with other people, my empathy will be working in some way or the other. Sometimes unconsciously also. Sometimes I won't realize that, okay, my empathy is working, but my empathy will be working in some minute ways that even I won't realize. I will realize that, okay, I have shown empathy to this student or this person only after I receive some kind of message or acknowledgement from that person. So yeah, it took me many years, several years, to reach that stage. But if you definitely wish to be such a person who has a lot of empathy for fellow beings and fellow living beings, you can definitely try for it consciously.
Yeah, empathy is the highest form of maturity, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are coming to a close. So now the session has really shown us that stories, literature, it's not confined to books, classrooms, or just one discipline. It continues to shape the way we all think, question, communicate, make decisions across disciplines. I think now before going on to the formal vote of thanks, I personally take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sharada, Uthara, Dr. Ratheesh, Dr. Manu, and did I miss Dr. Safia? Yes, thank you so much, all five of you, for readily agreeing in such a short notice. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Anuja Raj, my fellow organizer, Assistant Professor, School of Social Sciences and Languages, VIT Chennai, to deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Hasina ma'am. I hope I'm audible. Okay, so thank you for inviting me for this formal vote of thanks. So as we come to the close of this panel discussion, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our distinguished panelists, Ms. Uthara, Dr. Ratheesh Kumar, Dr. Manu Melwin, Dr. Safiya, and Dr. Sharada Devi. Thank you for sharing your expertise and for demonstrating through your diverse disciplines that literature and storytelling continue to shape the ways in which we understand history, science, organization, and also our identity. So my heartfelt thanks also go to our participants who are very actively joining us and enriching the discussion through their presence and thoughtful engagement. I also extend my sincere gratitude to our Dean and Pro Vice Chancellor of VIT Chennai for the encouragement and support that made this LITFEST 2026 possible. And also, I would like to thank my fellow organizers, Dr. Vineet and Dr. Hasina, for their constant support and teamwork in bringing this festival together. Thank you all once again for being a part of LITFEST 2026, Stories We Live By. And I hope that today's conversation will inspire you to continue seeing stories not just as things we read, but as ways of understanding the world. Have a happy and wonderful day. Hope to see you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Anuja. Thank you,
Yeah.
Hasina.
Thank you, Uthara.
And
Thank you, Sharada.
Vineet.
Thank you. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye. Bye. See you.